What's up, everybody? We're back with another week of the Dragzine Podcast. I'm your host, Senior Associate Editor Brian Wagner, and on the other side is top alcohol racer Jackie Fricke. Jackie, what is going on?
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. We've had a lot of back and forth trying to get you on the show. It's, you know what? It's a busy life we all live, especially as racers. And when the season kicks off, you got to kind of pick and choose your shots, right?
It's crazy. Our season's been a whirlwind so far. It's funny because my husband hasn't even started racing yet, and I feel like half of our season is over. And unfortunately for me, the dynamic is a little bit different because my car owner and I, John, make every clutch pack together that goes in the car. Actually, he's just started letting me make them on my own, but the race shop's 3.5 hours from my house. So it's definitely like a second or third job to do all that. So to find the time, and we've traveled quite extensively in the beginning of the season. It's been quite a whirlwind.
Yeah, it gets crazy in a hurry when racing season starts. And I think it really depends on the level of car you're racing. That if you have, a lawn chairs and battery charger kind of bracket car, it's a little easier, a little prep before the season, fresh fluids. And the faster you go, the more prep, the more testing you have to do. And then you got to get into a groove where you're mixing all that together and maintaining the car. I mean, it gets pretty crazy in a hurry.
It does. We left from, we were fortunate enough to be in the finals of the Gator Nationals, and we had a fuel delivery problem. I had the idea to go out to Vegas, which was literally 3 days later. And my car owner said, no, not a good idea. We're not really sure what's wrong with the car. Maybe not the best time. And we run really well in Vegas. So after our full-time guy, John, who is pretty much what you would call everything. He gets the car to the racetrack. He's the car chief. He does a phenomenal job for us. He and the car owner, John, and I, and some friends went out to dinner on Sunday night, and we convinced him that this Vegas idea was a good idea. He picked me up for the airport on Monday and said, do you still want to go? And I was like, yeah, of course. So he sent our guy, John, out there. He drove 3 straight days. We hadn't serviced the car. It was just the 3 of us for the test session on Thursday. So we had to put a clutch in it, do bottom end. We had to change head gaskets, of course, because we were racing in Vegas and there's no air out there, no barometer. And I was pretty proud of the fact that just the 3 of us had the car ready to go at 1 o'clock. When we showed up at 10 o'clock, we rolled out of the trailer, went 5:27, I think it was. And we were done for the day. It's kind of fun like that. I enjoy working on the car. I'm pretty slow, so during rounds and stuff, I do more of the computer stuff, but I really enjoy when they let me work on the car.
See, that's what I think's awesome about, and we've had different alcohol racers on the podcast before, and that's what I love about that style of racing is that to me, it's a throwback where a lot of times the driver is elbows deep in everything that's going on, that you just don't get to go to the lounge and hang out. You're like, hey, you got to come do something,
Yeah. I love to pitch in anywhere I can. Like I said, I stay out of their way during rounds, and I download all the computer stuff, fill the car with fuel, give John what he needs to see on the graph, and we'll kind of pick stuff like that apart. He's given me, I'd say, expanding roles over the last few years. He lets me, if I have an idea of something I want to try, he's awesome about saying, okay, we'll give that a whirl, or no, that really won't work, or, and this is the best team I've ever been on. It's we're a bunch of friends. We all get along. My family races with me, and I'm just extremely fortunate.
It's interesting to see. Again, it's back to the faster the car, the more you got to do. Is that if someone really wanted to get an interesting eyeful on what it's like to really work on any fast car, I think an alcohol car would be great too, because you get to see it come back, and that's when the ballet begins. It's not as intense as a nitro car, but it's the between round ballet of where everybody has a specific task that they have to do, and that's all you have to, like, that's on your punch out list. That's what you got to do.
Right. And we keep a pretty small team, other than my family that goes racing, and they're always there to pitch in. But we have Al Blake, John Fink is the car owner, John Osherman, and myself that go to all of the races together. And then, like I said, my sister and my nieces come with me. And then there's the 100 other family members of mine that race. But, when we travel, when we're out in Vegas, it's a very different dynamic because it's usually just the four of us there, or like when we go to Houston in a few weeks, it'll just be the four of us, as opposed to a Division I race where I have 7 to 8 family members racing alongside of me. So, but what you said about the between rounds ballet, John Fink is he's a really good manager, as far as, you're never allowed to raise your voice in our pits. You're never allowed to get excited. Everything is very calm, cool. And, it makes it's not my style, it took me a while to get used to that, but it's actually really good. And it makes it easy to focus and easy to do your job. And he always says, if you're talking, you're not listening, or you're not doing your job.
And those are some good, that's a good way to look at it. And it kind of plays into the fact that you were exposed to a lot of racing at a young age with your father, and there's people that they get in and get out of it, that's not my thing. They chase something else in life, but you've stuck with it. What's it about drag racing that just, has hooked you in and just been like, this is what I want to do?
I don't know if there's one thing that I could point out to it. My favorite thing is that, it keeps my family together. We went out, I put on social media yesterday, we took my mom out for Mother's Day. My older sister, Barb, her husband has a converter shop and a machine shop. Well, we windowed one of our blocks in Vegas, and not many Mother's Day celebrations begin with me transferring the block to my sister's car so it could get fixed. And, my dad, my poor mom, she's not involved in racing at all. She tolerates it, I guess. Doesn't love to see me go 280 miles an hour. It's just not her thing. But from a young age, I've always wanted to go fast. I've always wanted to race top Alcohol Dragster. So that part of it, I'm living a dream. But in reality, if a tricycle was all I could race, I'd race that too.
That's what I call the Alex Laughlin syndrome, where you will race anything. Like they're like, "Hey, Alex, you want to go race an airboat in Louisiana?" He's already got his fire suit. It's halfway there. Yeah, whatever. What are we racing? I mean,
Alex and I have a lot in common.
Yeah, literally, it's like it's just and I feel that too, because anything with an engine I'm interested in, and I've tried to go to experience as many different motorsports as I can, because you pull and you learn something from each. And when you're raised, it's hard to people to understand, I think, that if you weren't raised in that environment, you're not going to get it, or unless you have like what I call the sickness to want to be around it. Like, you'll be, oh, that's cool,
Right.
I'm going to go back to my other stuff where I'm like, I live out in the country, and I hear a car, like you can hear a modified something come by, and I'll pop, if I'm like, well, what is that? What do they got over there? You're attracted to
it. My sister, Amy, John and I were driving into the racetrack in Gainesville, and there was a house for sale. And it was this old rundown house, and they joked with me. They're like, you should buy this. And I was like, why? And they said, well, you'd be so close to the racetrack that even when they don't run, you could just go sit in the grandstands and make vroom vroom noises. And that is, I could sit at ACO on a Tuesday night and watch Street Night and just be real happy.
Yeah. Some people don't like to watch. They have to participate. I'm one of the ones, I can go to the track and watch whatever, because you're like, even on a street night, there's going to be at least one cool car there that's going to get your attention that you could talk to the owner for an hour for.
I could. It's funny. My husband, he can talk to anybody. He can, he's extremely intelligent and can have a conversation about anything with anybody. I struggle if it's not about racing. If it's not about racing or my travel business, I do love to travel. I don't really have a ton in common with a lot of people. So it's, I'm very outgoing, and I seem very outgoing at the racetrack because all the people there want to talk about racing. But, in a normal social situation, I don't really have a ton to say.
Yeah, that again is one of those things where it's like when you're so ingrained with it, it can be hard sometimes to identify. Like I've got friends that are huge into firearms that if you're not talking about things that go click bang, like they're thinking about things that go click bang.
Yeah. And I'm always thinking about race cars. I drive John crazy during the week. What do you think would happen if we do this? What do you think about a little fuel here or a little less fuel here or, a little more clutch weight and I constantly bounce ideas off my husband because he's extremely intelligent. What do you think would happen if this, so I kind of trade between the two of them, and Sean really understands the alcohol car really well. I probably drive him crazy. We'll be driving in the car and I'm like, I have an idea. What do you think about this? And it just, it kind of funny, but I said I would never marry a racer. And I couldn't even think of not being married to a racer.
I'm very fortunate that my wife married and she realized she was getting it, what she was getting into, and accepted. That's part of the test to be part of the family because my dad's into racing and she understands, gravitates, and enjoys it now, thankfully. But at times, I think she gets tested by my, wandering eye of, I can make that a project car. She sees a rusted pile of junk. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a great idea. No, trust me, it's going to be awesome. You can just see that look of her thinking, thank God we're not rich because we would have cars piled up everywhere. We would.
Yeah, I definitely test my husband's patience when it comes to that. A couple friends of ours were selling a dragster or thinking about selling a dragster. And actually, it's a dragster we used to own. And in the group text message, I said, babe, can I have that? And he's like, you have a dragster that you never race. And, it just, anything that revolves around race cars is my kind of activity.
Oh yeah, I tell people if it's loud, fast, and dangerous, I'm interested. I'm in. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Now you've a lot of people might not realize this is you were a successful bracket racer. You cashed some of the big checks, and won some national events as well. What did those type racing environments kind of teach you about being a successful racer? Because a lot of people like that I think there's some that look down upon bracket racing, but I don't think they realize there's a lot to learn about trying to run a number.
It's so difficult. I always joke. I mean, I was fortunate enough to win some $10 and $5,000 races. They were the biggest races around really back then. There was like maybe a 50 grander once a year, but I wasn't in the era of what it is now. And now it's, the promoters have made bracket racing so unbelievably, profitable. And it's crazy when one of our really good friends, Steve Sisko, I believe, I'm going to ask my husband. Yeah, I think he took home $400,000 last year. Just for about being a talented bracket racer. To me, they are, Sean, Sean's the better racer in our family. He's great with the numbers. And the reason I was so successful in bracket racing is, and you can literally put a timeline on it. He gave me the best equipment. He made the equipment that I had, better. I had a good car. He made it a great car. And then built me another good car on top of that. I've been extremely fortunate with everyone that has touched my life personally and in racing, that they've made it better and better. And Sean's got a phenomenal, I call it my super comp car because I had a dragster when we came into the marriage, but I think I've run it maybe 2 times when they didn't have alcohol racing. And he's great with numbers and, making things consistent and just really intelligent. And like I said, my whole family races. So we were at my brother-in-law's until 1:30 this morning. They were putting my niece's dragster together. She's graduated out of juniors. She's 19 and about to take on super comp. My nephews now have a car that they're going to run in super comp and bracket racing. And that to me is, we have such a big family, and I'm so fortunate for that, like I said, it keeps us all together. As far as leaving bracket racing, and my family thought I was crazy. Like, I think the last year that I, bracket raced and super comp raced, I think I won a $10,000 race, a $5,000 race, definitely a national event, and finished really well in the points. And they were like, why would you want to run this alcohol car that you have to pay to race? And that, the chance of winning back then, it was a blown car. It was a underfunded operation. And I absolutely loved it. I was hooked from the initial startup of the car.
Now, I do have some follow-up questions we're going to play off of that, but first I've got to do our read ad for our sponsor of this broadcast, AFR Airflow Research, the original CNC-ported cylinder head. From the street enthusiast to the hardcore racer, AFR has designed a cylinder head for your application with one goal in mind, just to go fast. Got to hit those sponsors, just like NGK,
Absolutely,
right?
Just like NGK.
There you go. See, just slide it right in there. Now, going, like you said something interesting there, to me, winning back in the day before the big money races is that was tough because there weren't as many of these races. So the concentration of good racers coming to those small and 5-10K racers, that's a stacked deck. Then you decide, you're successful. You're like, you know what? Let's go do something else. What is it about top alcohol racing that drew you in and keeps you there now?
Everything. Originally when I started, I just wanted to drive the cars. I really had not much interest in working on them. Whatever they let me do, okay, great. I'd love to help. But the first time Tom Jones, my first car owner, taught me how to do bottom end, I was like, this is awesome. This is like really cool. And between the rounds, and we were always short of help back then. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then to learn more about, I think it helps you tremendously as far as, I can tell we had a fuel delivery problem at Gainesville. And when my car owner got to the end of the track, like I said, he's very quiet, not a lot of emotion. He kind of goes like this all the time. And I was like, we just lost 5 to 6 and 60 foot. It didn't go anywhere. I'm like, it's that fuel delivery problem we had last year. And he's kind of looking at me like, and I'm like, no, I'm telling you, we had a problem. It didn't go anywhere. I halfway down the track, I made sure I had it to full fuel. I think that's really important, as opposed to someone who just sits in the car and goes down the track. And I also think when you have a problem in the car and you understand the way everything works, these cars, the A-fuel cars are way easier to drive than the blower cars. Joey Severance is my hero. He's great on the tree. He does an amazing job of driving the car and, just does a phenomenal job. I'd like to get back in a blower car one day. I don't know if my husband, I'll probably get glaring looks from across the room, but just because I think that's so cool. But I think when you understand everything, it makes a huge difference in your driving capabilities.
Totally. You can feel and tell the person that really has the technical knowledge what it's doing and let them know to make the tweaks, the super secret tweaks.
It's, you're fortunate enough, you have the race pack and it's got the G meter on it. And it's got all the, it's got so many bells and whistles. But to be able to, we broke a motor in Vegas, and we had been having some problems with a couple connecting rods, and about 900 feet, it started to vibrate, and I was like, oh no. And I took my foot out of it, and unfortunately it just exploded. And we're fortunate. That's been one of our rare engine failures in quite a few years. And it was unfortunate that a connecting rod just broke. But before they got to me, I was like, the cars broke, because we were between qualifiers, and I was like, we need to hurry up, we're going to need to change motors. And one of the guys said, how do you know? I'm like, trust me, I know. And it wasn't evident that a rod had come through, but it became evident. And we changed motors, and let a testament to my team. I think that if we had a motor in and running for the next qualifier in like an hour and 10 minutes.
Those situations usually go one of two ways. It's either, I don't think it's that bad, and then you pull the engine diaper off and you see, an extra viewing hole on the side of the block, or you think it's the end of the world and it turns out it's something super simple. It's nothing in between, it seems like, in a race car.
Right.
And it also seems like sometimes that the tiniest little mouse-like noise can feel 100 times louder when you're inside the car.
Yeah, definitely can.
You get paranoid in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
Now, like you said, you've driven a blower car, you've driven the injected car. Which is your favorite and why?
If you tried to take my current car away from me right now, I'd cry like a baby. It's such a phenomenal car. And when the tuning window is like this instead of like this, it makes it so much more fun to drive. We've put a ton into it the last 3 or 4 years. John gives us everything we need to succeed, including test time, renting tracks. I recently heard that, oh, well, no wonder they do so well. They test all the time. Well, the time and effort and money and effort and time away from family and all of that stuff, I'm proud of that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's my current car is 100% my favorite. I really miss doing burnouts in a blower car. I have burnout envy every time I run Sean Cowie. I'm like, oh, they were so fun. And he has no care for valve springs in his car at all. So I have burnout envy when I run him. But other than that, I mean, we run it with, like I said, there's 4 people, and really 2 of them do the majority of the work at the track on the car. And then we have some good support staff back at the race shop. A guy named Red comes to the race shop a lot and helps out, but we keep the team small, and you can't really, well, Joey does it with a small blower car team, but they blow up a lot. They break a lot of stuff. So I really enjoy the longevity and the less work of the Nitro car.
Personally, I'm a blower car guy. I like, especially a screw blower, because it's like, it's so hard again for people to understand, being in the stands, it's loud, but being on the starting line, like, I haven't got to sit and drive a screw blower car yet, working on that. But like, I did get to start one up, and we did a video on it, and the owner wrapped the throttle. I'm like, that's life changing. Like, this is like, it's like this angry animal that just wants to claw your eyes out, and all that power is underneath your little right foot.
It is, and holding it there, whatever they tell you to leave at 6,000 RPM with the clutch in, and I wish I had the RPMs to leave with the injected car that I did in the blower car, because it's so much easier to cut a light. But I leave at like 1900 RPM from a dead idle, and it's really difficult to hit the tree in that car. And the way the clutch is set up, if I'm 40 anything, I'm doing backflips. So I miss the blower car where you could leave at 6,000, and it just, obviously it's more difficult to do, but it's a ton of fun.
Oh, there's something about like I love Top Alcohol Funny Car because of just how unique and how gnarly those things are. But there's just something about either a funny car or the dragster when the blower cars are staging, where it's like there's like this like build up to it where you're the whapping the throttle, getting ready to do it. Where Nitro Cars is just like out of the blue, hit you in the head. But those blower cars, it's like you feel it building But there's something also be said about those nitro cars where it's like that calm before the storm, where it's like, just boom, rocket ship time.
Well, it's fun. It's, to me, and like mentally, to prepare for races, my husband built me a simulator in our basement. So I have the full tree, and he and I, quite a few Friday night dates or Tuesday nights, or we go down and practice against each other. And the calm before when you pull it to full fuel and the motor comes down and you're about to step on the gas, and that's pretty cool too. And sometimes I stand between, if two of my friends are racing, and I go up to watch, and I'm like, oh, these cars are violent. It doesn't, you're so focused when you're in the car that it doesn't seem like that inside.
Yeah, the when they start to pull down, that's another, like, it doesn't matter if it's the A fuel car or a full big show car, like that's that other kind of moment where it's like it's about to happen. And it's like
Yep.
you want to have like that like Michael Bay slow motion kind of moment, like film footage, like right before the Earth's literally about to try to rotate.
Yeah. I funny car was not, I don't love funny cars, and I don't didn't think I'd ever want to drive one. And I have a couple friends that drive alcohol funny cars and drive them really well. And I've sat in one, and I'm like, this would be cool, I think. I don't know. And like Sean Bellemere, I'm really good friends with him, and he's like, you'd love it. You just got to do it once. And my family's like, can you get out of here? She does not need to do this once.
Yeah.
So, what they tolerate a lot with the A fuel car, and everybody in my family, like I've said, is a bunch of bracket racers. So I don't know that everybody quite understands my love for this, but they're all very supportive.
It's interesting, I was raised around bracket racing growing up in Northeast Ohio. My dad bracket raced, friends raced, growing up going to national events and getting them, stock and super stock were always like, that's what I went to watch. Like nitro cars, they're cool, but like sportsman racing to me is, that's where it's at. But stock and super stocks where it's at. And, as I got older and, I started working one of my friend's heads up cars, you get sucked into that world, and it's intoxicating, isn't it? It's just
so addicting,
like,
so addicting. And it's so, just, it's nothing I ever want to leave. I say, when I'm about 80, I'll be ready to retire.
Racers don't retire. They just get to the point where you physically can't do it anymore. You look at like someone like Willard Kinsey, he was racing uphill motors, like hill climb motorcycles in his 50s when most people are thinking about retiring. Then he gets into drag racing and starts driving pro mods at the age where most people are handing out Werther's candy. It gets to the point where you get like physically you have to slow down because you can't safely drive the vehicle. And I think that's where a lot of drag racers go.
Yeah, I agree.
I think,
said, I'll just slow down in progression, and I'll go to like a street car. There was a woman who ran stock eliminator, and I think her last race, she was 89. I'd like to top that just by like a year or so.
just to have the record, right? Just to have it. Yeah. And even then, you look at some of those stock eliminator cars, and you can jump behind one of those, front wheel drive 18-second cars, and if you can cut a light, you make everybody's life difficult with one of those.
Very difficult. I ran super stock at the Atlanta National event in Kenny Mealy's car a million years ago, and I loved it. But I was dialed like right around 11-0. And I remember having Chuck Gallagher fourth round and thinking, oh my God, he's going to come by me like a freight train. And then in my mind, I thought, yeah, he's going to come by me like a freight train. He's going to have just as difficult of a time as I'm having with him. So, I mean, like that goes back to I would race anything they'd let me. I mean, there's not a ton of classes I haven't driven in. Funny car and top sportsman are probably the only two.
And I usually save this question for the end, but we'll ask it now. What wouldn't you race?
Nothing.
Okay. That's
well, Nitro Harley, because Bob Malloy from Bonifant offered to switch rides with me one day, and Sean was there and he said the locks will be changed when you get home. So not that one.
Well, it's a different answer than what I was anticipating. The simple fact that you weren't, the red flag was thrown. Most of the time, most racers just actively say, "I will never get on a Nitro Harley because they're death machines."
No, my father, I grew up, my father ran motorcycles, and I told him when I was about 13 that my dream was always to run an alcohol dragster. That was first and foremost. I drew a picture when I was 7 years old, and my sister gets so tired of hearing this story. She presented it to me when I won our first division championship in 2014. But there was a period in there about 13 or 14 where I wanted to ride pro stock motorcycle because my dad was a badass bracket racer on a motorcycle. And he basically had everything sold within about a year and a half and was in a car. So I don't think he loved that idea.
Dad pulled the plug on that, said, "You know what? We're just going to cut this one off now."
Dad or mom, I'm not really sure. But I mean, it was time for him to get into a car because he was very financially successful, and obviously the cars paid better. And he won the track championship all the time when I was a kid in motorcycles. So, a natural progression into cars. And but yeah, there's not really much I wouldn't race.
See, the top 3 answers I get from people on what they wouldn't race are Nitro Harley, a Pro Mod, and a fuel altered.
Oh, fuel altered. Richard Hartman was pretty impressive in that fuel altered.
Was that not bonkers to watch?
Unbelievable. And he's a friend of mine. I haven't got a chance to. I've seen him at the last 2 races, but not like, hey, how was that? But that thing looks so cool. And my father's first car was an S&W altered. So I wouldn't shy away from jumping behind one of them.
I saw Hartman's that altered years ago. They had it at the Detroit Autorama when they first rolled it out, and I love fuel altereds. To me, that's like the ultimate, like that was the outlaw car before there was small tire drag radial outlaw racing, because you 110% had to have a screw loose to want to drive one of those things. Like, end of discussion. Especially if you watch the old short wheelbase cars, that's like. At what point did someone think that was a good idea?
Mm-hmm. My one of the very first cars I raced in competition, a fast car, Scott Wenny had an Aero Roadster, and it went like 850s. And obviously I'm quite a bit older, so this was 20 some years ago. 850s was fast in a short wheelbase car like that. And that was a blast to drive. I unfortunately, one of the runs, I was in 3rd round of a $5,000 race at Maple Grove, and drove it a little too far, and I spun it around. Didn't hit anything. I've been fortunate enough, knock wood, in my career not to hit anything. But I ended up facing the wrong way, and I had Scott and my sister Amy running this way down the track, and I had the ambulance this way. And I decided, this is embarrassing. I'm going to get out of here. So I started it up and drove off the track.
That's, I guess, if you don't hit anything, you're okay. You know what? Just, you check out, I'm not leaking anything. All right, let's just get this thing off the track. Let's end the freak show, right?
That's exactly what I did. And my dad was so cool. He came back and he was like, "You okay?" I think he was the pair in back of me, if I remember right. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he goes, "Well, if you want to get back in it, I suggest you do it today." And I was like, "Really?" Okay. And Scott put another set of tires on it, and I made another run that day.
Got to get right back on the horse. Like, you know what? You have to have, I think, in drag racing, you have to have a really short memory on the bad and the good, because that way it doesn't affect you in the now.
Luckily for me, I do. I can't hold a grudge. I get over things in 3 seconds flat. So I have a really short memory.
Yeah, it works out that way, because that way, we all have to have that attitude. We're in the car that we're bulletproof and 10 feet tall, because otherwise you don't need to be there.
I drove over my head one time at Pomona. I would say this was probably my worst, driving in Pomona. It kind of draws you towards the center line, and we weren't qualified. It was Q2, and the car was shaking, and I stayed with it a little bit too long, and I scared the bejesus out of I actually was running a blower car, and I shook over the center line, and I couldn't bring it back. It wouldn't come back. And poor Jay Livingston in the other lane, the owner of National Trail Raceway, was running a blower car at the time, and it was like his 10th pass down the track. And he had to lift because he was going to hit me. So that was my worst driving job ever. And fast forward like 5 years later, I went to his track and kind of had forgotten what he looked like a little bit. And he was like, "Hey," I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Do you drive an A fuel car?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You ever almost drive into a blower car guy?" And I was like, "Oh, God." I'm so embarrassed. And now I got to race at this guy's track.
Jay's a good dude. Yeah, him and Jason out at National Trail Raceway.
Good people.
They definitely, and that's cool, because when that's a whole nother subject. When you see people that have raced owning a racetrack know how to run a track, how racers enjoy it.
Absolutely. And we love going to their events, every event they have. My husband has been fortunate enough to win the sports nationals out there, and done really well. And we went out there as a family last year and did really well again. So I look forward to going back there this year.
Hopefully, one of my project cars is a bracket car that I'm going to try to enter into super gas without a throttle stop and die like a real man and get my head kicked in. But it's just going to be the experience
Fun.
it's the experience of going to a national, a big event like that. It's something that you want to check off your list, if you're able to.
Yeah, definitely fun.
It's a different feel. Like I've been very fortunate to go to all kinds of different races and participate them, and I want to be able to participate in an NHRA event like that, just to get that feel versus some of the outlaw and the regular bracket night, because it hits different. It really does.
I still get butterflies pulling into the gates at any national event I go to, any divisional. I am, I would say, fortunate to have never lost track of, my sister Amy and I. She's my best friend in the world, and we travel a lot of places together. And like, when we were pulling into the Gators this year, I'm like, "Can you believe we're pulling into the Gator Nationals and we get to race here?" Because we went there as 14-year-old kids helping one of our friends. So I'm definitely one of the ones that never lose sight of that. I'm excited every race I get to enter.
Oh yeah, like the racetrack, and I'll say it to the day I die, is my happy place. The world could be on fire in my personal life outside, but the second I roll through the gate, whatever's like, it's like there's this giant force shield around the track. I could care less whatever's going on. I'm at a track. Rest of the world doesn't matter at this point.
My husband says my brain works as what is it? Race cars, and what else? There's something else. He just always says race cars. I'm like, yeah, that's inside my brain all the time.
Yeah, it's literally, one of my friends could pull up right now and be like a dog, shake a doggy treat bad. You want to go to the track? Want to go to the track with his rig? I'd be like, wouldn't even ask where we're going. I'm like, let me pack some clothes. Don't care what we're racing, where are we going?
Yep.
As long as you got caffeine and you keep me fed, I'll be good for a good 8 to 10 days.
I'm easier. I don't even need to eat.
Yeah, see,
at a racetrack, I always forget to eat.
Now, that's one of the things that I've been guilty of, a lot of media people are guilty of, is you look up and it's 3 o'clock and you realize you haven't eaten or drank anything all day and you're about to pass out. That's not fun.
Yeah. My guys don't think it's too fun when I forget to feed them either.
No, they get hangry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep the creatures fed, right?
Yeah, thank God my nieces and sister are around to remember, oh, it's lunchtime, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Now, I was flipping through your bio, doing a little bit of research, and you've won some pretty big races, behind the butterfly of a dragster. You've won championships. out of all that, which means the most to you and why is it so special?
Nobody ever asked me that question before.
You know, that bold headline one, when you think back and you look at the trophy case, and there's always that one you look at, you're like, that's the one that I want.
I appreciate every single one of them. Winning in Vegas was really cool. Probably my very first one, driving for Joe Cantrell in the injected car, is my most meaningful win, because you know, you dream of doing this, but how many people really get to experience a win in an alcohol dragster? Like, to me, it was, and I don't have any family members. I don't have any, you know, I had zero connections in the alcohol world. So to work my way up to do that, and I have a picture of my niece Tori and I, and she's little at the time, just tiny little nothing. And I had the Wally, and I have that picture on a couple of my screensavers, because I never thought I would get one of these. And it just, but my biggest round win was my first one in an alcohol dragster, and my whole family was there. It was at the Maple Grove National event, and that was driving for Tom Jones. And I had a problem, you know, when the car would shake, I would short shifts. So he said, if you see both your shift lights, you can win this round. And I'm like, okay. I had Tom Baer, and he had finished #2 in the world in Federland's car the year before. And I was thinking, yeah, right. I've never won a round. I've been a year of Arthur Gallant's beating stick. You know, he beat me like a drum. And to win that race, and my family was there. You know, my sister came down and gave me a hug, and then everybody else pretty much followed, because Maple Grove's our home track. And I remember getting a hug from Tom Jones, and I'll never forget that.
See, that right there, that's what, like, I try to explain to people, the positive emotions and what you get from drag racing. It can be the smallest thing to the biggest thing, is like, it's what, like, it keeps you going when you are thrashing on a car at 3 a.m. You've been on fire, you've been upside down. You want to keep working on it. Now, another one I saw, to me, which I thought was interesting on your resume, is a Jegs All-Star win. Now, that right there, to me, is like, you go to the World Cup race, Jason Miller gives you a sticker that says you're a certified badass to qualify for that race, because that's the best in the world. Now, when I see someone that has a qualifying sticker on the trailer that they were a Jegs All-Star, and then you win, that's like, to me, that's a big deal in the sportsman world.
You put me on the spot, and I forgot that nothing will ever top that day. I forgot. I totally, you put me on the spot, and I'm not really good at that stuff, but with that, all I ever wanted to do, my husband does everything before me. He won national events before me. Actually, he won his first national event he ever entered. And I was like, really? I've been trying for, like, come on. So he got to be Jegs All-Star before me. And, you know, it's just like a funny, you know, thing that we have. And so to qualify for the Jegs All-Star, I missed it by 1 point and 1 round twice, and was devastated, because all I ever wanted to do was qualify. But the cool thing was, I never even dreamt that we could win it. I didn't go that far. I was so thrilled to be there, and so thrilled to get that All-Star sticker. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And then on race day, I'm not really a calm person. I'm very upbeat, happy, don't sit still. When I'm in the race car, I'm really calm and very, once the engine starts. So when we won that, it was so surreal. And literally, other than my parents and my mother-in-law, my whole family was there. my best girlfriend, Melinda, was there. Both my nieces, like I said, through Indy, what did we have? 9 entries?
Yeah.
9 entries total in our family. So my brother-in-law that runs stock, my husband had both of his cars entered. He got to the semis of the US Nationals, which was almost like an amazing weekend, you know, for us winning the AllStars. And then he got to the semis. I was like, it would be so amazing if he won this race, and he just lost a really good race. But that's my best win. You were right.
And like, for viewers and listeners that don't understand, like the JEGS All-Stars is basically all the sportsman racers compete to earn points to get the golden ticket to go to this. And it's not something where you just pay an entry fee to go. You have to earn your right to go there. And you're not racing a bunch of ducks or bumps, especially in the alcohol ranks where it's from, like, it's the badasses from across the country. And when you are like there, and I was very fortunate. I got to be one of the ones at Joliet and cover that. Like, to me, it's sunk in, sitting there shooting pictures in there. And now, Alan Reinhardt's doing the introductions. These people are coming out. I'm like, this is going to be crazy to watch, because this is like all of the people that are straight headhunters, type A personalities that are good at what they are in one place. This is going to be a good race.
Unbelievable. Like, and it really was, because we did it during COVID, a lot of the fanfare was gone. I'm okay with that, because I was telling my husband last night when we were driving in the car, I thought it was so cool to win a region championship this year and not have to give a speech. He's like, you're the only person that, he's really good at speech giving, not me. I can cry at the drop of a hat. I wear my heart on my sleeve. He's really good at it. And our friend Jason Kenny is like even better than Sean at it, like phenomenal. I don't like giving speeches at all. So I was thrilled to win it. And with the JEG stuff, everybody's like, oh, but you missed going up on stage. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Yeah, didn't
I'm
miss
good
it.
with
Nope.
that. But I don't think anybody could catch us this year to go back. So I think we'll get to go back this year and to have it at Indy. And this year, even a little more special, my niece Taylor has a chance to be the Super Street All-Star, and my husband Sean has a chance to be the Super Comp All-Star. So if we could, if one of them could, we keep losing races, so I don't know if that hurts or helps, but if one of them could tie that up and I would get to be All-Star with them. Last year, when there was about 2 months left in the season, they looked really good for points. And we had already almost locked up our region championship. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I got to win this with my husband, that would be the coolest thing in the world. But unfortunately, he finished higher in the world than me. He finished number 3. And my niece finished 2nd in the division, but she's a 21-year-old kid that's got a pretty bright future.
We talked a little bit about that in the pre-calls, like the regional racing and like the strategery that goes into like winning a sportsman region, like world championship in sportsman racing. I don't think in regional championships, I don't think the average person realizes like that's like you're like on like a dirt track, like the World of Outlaws tour. You are racing all the time to earn those points, and more importantly, stop other people from earning points.
Huge. That was part of our strategy to go out to Vegas, and it paid off. We came within 100th of a second of sweeping both races, and my team owner John's like, you just want to go to Vegas, you just love to gamble. And I said, yeah, I do, but I also think this is a good idea to go out there. We run really well at Vegas, and I have started to, like we were talking about, in our race team really plans things on what's going to be fun. We go to New Orleans every year because my boss loves New Orleans. He's got half a tattoo on his arm of the city of New Orleans. We go to Brainerd because the zoo is a blast and there's the Mall of America there. So most of these things you don't hear from a team of, why they go to races. This year, we've started to put a little more stock into, okay, if we race here, it may be better for us, or, you know, they had talked about running a different region this year. I don't ever want to do that because I get to race in a division with all of my family. So to me, that wouldn't be worth it. To win whatever you can win, I don't want to race without my family. So, but there is a lot of strategy that goes into it.
Now, you mentioned family, and that's, it's been a reoccurring theme. Racing is a family sport, and yours is pretty heavily involved in your program. What's it like to have your sister's a crew member, your husband at the track all the time? That's got to be almost hard to put into words how special that is.
That's, people always ask me, when do you want to run Top Fuel? And I'm like, never. I couldn't bring all of my family with me. My car owner is one of my best friends. I absolutely get along so well with, the people on the team. And then to be able to, last week, my niece Mackenzie from Columbus surprised my other niece and showed up at the airport in Atlanta. And, there's 4 of us girls in the hotel room. Just getting to not only the racing aspect of it, but the fun. My niece's boyfriend got to the final last week in pro stock. So after we had lost, I'm like, well, maybe Vincent will win. And he had, I don't think he'd run pro stock in 2 years. They just, it kind of fell together that he was going to run that weekend. So, it just, to race with your family, to me, I wouldn't want it any other way. And like I said, my father bracket races every weekend. So I kind of wish he traveled with us. And we're not always at the same racetrack, but it's cool that my whole family follows the NHRA stuff so that we can all be together. Because at the end of the day, most races you go to, you're going to lose. You're not going to win. You're not going to bring home a trophy. But in our family, when we have like 10 entries, we're increasing our odds for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The stats in my mind say that that's definitely going to give you, a whole lot better chance for sure.
Yeah, and it just, to me, that's every part of it. And sometimes we're a little too close for comfort, and it's my youngest niece Tori and I battle head to head sometimes, and then if she's not at a race, I'm like, man, I wish she was here. And she backs me up every run. She keeps me completely calm in the race car. We have our stuff that she knows, that like where to put the car. She knows to get the car in the shade so the fuel stays cool. She knows a ton of stuff about her, and I have a full conversation with each other on the starting line without ever saying a word. We don't have radios. I'll be like, I'm ready to stage. And she's like, not yet. So all that kind of stuff keeps it really fun and light.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes when the hard times do hit, it makes it a lot easier to deal with. And again, I always try to tell people it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you're running any kind of heads up vehicle. I mean, it's the fact of the matter is you're gonna tear stuff up. You're gonna have to work late. You're gonna get cut. You're gonna be tired. But you have to know that going in, and being in an environment where you're comfortable with it makes it a lot easier to do.
It does. We were having a birthday party for Tori last Friday night, and I can't even remember what we had to fix on the car, but the birthday party didn't happen. We had like signs up in our pits, and we were going to have people over, and unfortunately, the car comes first, and you can't ever make any real set plans around racing because there's always something to do, and our team is so dedicated, and obviously the car comes first before anything. And it just, we're pretty serious, but on the same token, we know how to have fun too.
I've been on the losing end of plans getting shattered many a time where, we were at Indy at the NMCA finals. My good friend Ray Litz working on his car, and we thought we were going to make our last qualifying hit, be good to go, no issues. And then it was one of those things. He goes, car made a funny noise. Need to check it out. Then you start poking around a little bit, I see him reaching for a lot of tools. I'm like, all right, this isn't good. He goes, yeah, something's wrong with the converter. Dig a little bit further. converter broke a lug off, tore up a bunch of stuff, and the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're walking into Denny's looking like you did a nosedive into a grease pit
I know,
because
right?
everybody else had gone out to get a nice steak dinner because it was an early night, and here we are looking like a couple of bums trying to just score us a nice big breakfast because we're about to have to go back to the track in a couple hours.
I used to make grand plans. Sometimes I still make that mistake, but I used to make grand plans of, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And now I try not to make any plans at the racetrack because they're probably going to get broken anyway.
I look at it this way. I make what I call a light outline. Like I have the things that I absolutely have to do. And then it's like, well, you think you don't plan it, but you think, well, if this happens, maybe we can go do this best case scenario. That way, you're not disappointing yourself. It's like a fun surprise.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, in my mind, a lot of times people, to pull back the media curtain, it's like, hey, I'm going to go do a photo shoot on this car. I've got my day planned out. It's going to be awesome. And then you're shooting that car and they send a piston into low orbit and all of a sudden they don't have time. It's like, all right, time to go to plan triple F.
Yeah. Lots of planned triple Fs at the racetrack.
Yeah, definitely. And it's to me, I couldn't imagine not being in the racing world. And, I'm very fortunate myself. I get to do this I get to talk to people like you for a living. I get to tell their stories. And again, people ask me like, well, what do you do? I'm like, how much time do you have? How detailed do you want to get? Now, I always like to throw fun little hypothetical questions out there to my guests, putting you on the spot again to have some fun. Now, let's just say we are in another new world. I have a magical checkbook that I open up on the Dragzine Podcast that lets you race any class you want to race other than the one you're in. So you can't race top alcohol, but you have an open checkbook to race whatever you want. What are you going to build? What are you going to race?
Oh, it would be top alcohol, but okay, open checkbook so that I can take all of my crew with me.
I'll allow it. I have that ability.
Then Top Fuel.
Okay. Yeah.
I would never leave my team that I'm on, and that's the only reason. I would absolutely kill to fill the speed in a Top Fuel car. I think that would be so awesome. And but I would never leave my team, so I'm not going anywhere.
You know what?
I'm there till they kick me out.
And which I was watching the broadcast last week and I saw you rip off. It was like a 5:17, which I'm like, in my mind again, when you know how fast stuff is and you look at those incrementals on the time slip, and I'm like thinking, I couldn't imagine picking up 50 plus mile an hour on the back half in a vehicle. That's got to be a rocket ship.
It is. It's, believe it or not, the more impressive part and like where everything really happens in an A fuel car is to the first half of the track. So the second half, you get to enjoy the ride. And yes, picking up that 50 miles an hour, but everything's kind of settled down and calm. And the car doesn't try to move around too much down there, where I notice the Top Fuel cars wander a bit more down there. But the more impressive part, like we went 233 to the 8th last week.
That's hauling the mail.
That's fast. Numbers wise, I'm like, and my husband's taught me to be a lot about the split numbers. And so I'll tell John, okay, we're missing from here to here. We need to pick up a little bit here. And the split times are really important, but 233, the fastest I've been 236 to half track. So, that's pretty cool.
I think the back half of the track depends on the vehicle you're in too. Like
it is,
the drag, like you said, it's a little calm. Now the back half in a turbo NHRA trim pro mod is a whole different animal, because at that point in the game, that's when, they're hitting the second set of it, boosters, and that thing's rocketing down the track once again. And those 8th quarter mile turbo car racing, doesn't matter if it's top sportsman or a pro mod or any kind of outlaw racing, listening to a turbo car at half track is like, that's wild.
awesome
when it goes full tilt.
Yeah, I've seen Troy Coughlin do a wheelie at the Gators. I think it was like 3 years ago or whatever, at like 8th Mile. And I was like, man, that thing's awesome.
It's, it's funny you talked about Alex Laughlin. Again, I've had him on his podcast. He said it's fun and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
At that point, like in a door car going that fast, you're just, I hate to use the word hope, but you're hoping everything's going to go right, because if something doesn't go right, you then have to switch to luck, which is not where you want to be.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
It's like I was on another podcast. We talked about Hartman's running that car, and they're like in the a fuel or the fuel altered. Like, what do you think? Is that impressive? I'm like, let that sink in for a second. Like, what that car did in the back half as a nitro blower car, like that thing's gonna pull till it explodes. And he's doing that in a funny car chassis without funny car downforce. That's the next level of crazy.
Yeah. But he's always been a real good driver, so not surprised.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of faith in a lot of things that happen. The tune-up and your driving ability, because there's the razor thin margin for error there is extra skinny at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like watching those Top Fuel Harley guys. Or actually, what's even crazier are the Jason Mill, the XDRA, some of those turbo leader bikes that those guys have, no wheelie bars and extended swing arm. Those guys are running 6-second passes, and at half track, they're banging gears, and that bike's trying to ride up. Nope, no thanks. I will watch. It's amazing to watch. I'm glad you're doing it. I ain't gonna do that.
Yeah, I don't think I'd do that either.
Yeah, at that point again, it's there's a lot of bad stuff that could happen, and nope, I'm good.
No thanks.
I'll clap and be impressed. Well, Jackie, our time here is coming to an end, and I like to give my guests their ability to channel their inner John Force and thank all their sponsors and tell where to find people at. So I'll flip it over to you. The helm is yours. Tell people who you got to thank and where they can learn about what you do.
Okay, I have so many people to thank, because, like I said, I'm the person that's, I guess, out front of the car, but none of this happens without NGK spark plugs, Lucas Oil, Think Equipment, JE Pistons, BP Race Fuels, my family, my company, Accelerated Travel. It allows me to go racing. My customers are super understanding. Okay, we don't want to bother you today. We know you're qualifying. And I'm like, great people. I hope I'm not missing anybody, but there's a ton of awesome companies behind us. Like the NGK people are not only our partners, but they're like super fun to work with. VP I've been with for forever. JE Pistons, what we have in our car, that second to none. So we use the products, the Lucas Oil. Think Equipment's become a distributor. That's how much we believe in Lucas Oil. They've switched over all their equipment for that. So everybody we're partnered with, we use all of their stuff, and we're really fortunate to, be able to testify at how great their stuff is. So
where can they learn about, I'm assuming you got a social media presence where people can see the stuff you run, where your sponsors are at, where, you got a Facebook page. What do you got? Website?
We do. Think Racing has Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff. At Think Racing has its own website. I don't do any of that stuff. My nieces take care of all of that stuff. I'm terrible at it, and they do a phenomenal job, along with Jeannie Lenke, JLP Productions, which also reminded me of ISC Racers Tape, another person that stands behind us all these years. But the Think Racing is everywhere in social media, and they make some really cool videos of recaps of the races, and they're really fun to watch. Like I said, we kind of focus on the fun aspect of all the races, and the enjoyment besides the speed of the car. So anything Think Racing, reach out, get us on social media. I love to interact with people, and I really appreciate you having me today.
Well, Jackie, thanks so much. I got to thank our sponsors, AFR Performance Distributors and Pro Charger. Congratulations, you survived the Dragzine podcast. Thank you for coming on. And when you're in Columbus, I'll swing by and say hello.
Definitely. I look forward to it. Thanks so much.